panel session on user research for lexicography. My name is Sascha Wolfer from the Leibniz Institute for the German Language in Mannheim. And it is my great pleasure to welcome you all here. We will be hearing 5 short summaries, and feel free to use the chat for your questions. And I would say we cope with the questions after each summary. And if there's time left in the end, we will have some more questions, maybe related to the whole panel. I will have a close watch on time. We have like 8 or 9 minutes per summary and discussion, and I will raise my hand, the virtual hand, if we have to get on to the next summary. So without further ado, I'm happy to introduce my colleague from the Leibniz Institute for the German Language in Mannheim, Petra Storjohann, and she will talk about visionary perspectives on the lexicographic treatment of easily confusable words. Petra, you have the floor.
Lovely. Start the screen sharing.
Sure.
And Sascha, you tell me if you can see something.
I can see it.
Perfect. So for those who don't know me, my name is Petra Storjohann, as Sascha said. We're both colleagues, both working at the Leibniz Institut für Deutsche Sprache in Mannheim in Germany. And I've been working as a linguist and lexicographer for a really long time. And a small team of people, including myself, developed an online dictionary describing commonly confused words. And we have looked at a particular type of confusables, so-called paronyms. You might not be familiar with the term as such, but I'm very sure you are familiar with the phenomenon. Have a look at the examples here. The new resource that we built includes words like these, and I also provided you with a list of English pairs, so you, just in case you don't speak any German, so you can have an impression. As you can imagine, both native speakers and language learners alike face uncertainties when using such words. And we know this for sure by studying internet forums extensively. So creating an innovative dictionary and accounting for all the different needs was very challenging. Also because we wanted to create a lexicographic resource that is distinctively different. We wanted dynamic layouts, customizable contrastive entries for parallel perusal, and instant comparison of different description levels. And this is why the dictionary is called Paronyms, Dynamic and Contrast. It's the first corpus-based e-dictionary documenting German paronyms, and we launched it 3 years ago. So in my talk, I present this reference guide briefly, but only briefly because it is the starting point of something much bigger. The main concern of my presentation is a vision I have, and I want to share with you today. Reliable e-dictionaries of confusables have not been compiled for most European languages. And a large number of paronyms in our dictionary are in fact Latin-based loanwords and internationalisms. Some are identical in meaning in other languages, some are false friends, others don't have formal pairs in one or the other language. And I myself have personally very often regretted the fact that I need to look up English equivalents in separate entries of bilingual dictionaries, not being able to compare with one consultation only. And language forums are full of questions about appropriate translations of confusables. So I came up with an idea. Why not creating a bilingual dictionary of paronyms, starting with what we already have? If I can compare a German pair in a 2-lemma contrastive way, I should also be able to do the same in a 4-lemma structure. For that reason, I created a fake entry with English counterparts. And I was surprised, how such an entry gave me a clear answer as to where the similarities and the differences are. And the more I experimented with this one entry, the more I found myself in a visionary bubble. Now, what if I could just pick any 2 languages and compare their confusables, their false friends, their formal counterparts. All we need are language modules using the same description principles, the same entry architecture, and similar corpora. And yes, I'm aware of limits and problems, but I also firmly believe we could expand this existing monolingual standalone product. So in my paper, I argue much more in detail that it is both. It's a visionary and it is a feasible enterprise to create such a resource. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Petra. And there's one question in the chat from Lars Trapp Jensen. How do you see the relation between your resource and writing assistance? Could a paronym dictionary be a component of writing assistance?
It should. If there's someone who is able to create an appropriate writing assistant tool, I'd be very happy to integrate a paronym dictionary in it. I haven't thought about it in much detail, but I wouldn't know why this shouldn't be possible. And beneficial, most of all beneficial for all the user groups. Yeah.
Thanks. There's another question from Michal Mechura. First from Yaka Chibe. Did you have a specific method to obtain confusable words?
Yes, we did. The computational and the corpus linguists helped us. What we did was collecting prefixes and suffixes, and then we automatically detected pairs that only differ by their prefixes or suffixes or by specific letters in between. Because usually it's the word itself that is very similar. It's only different in the suffixes usually. We extracted those pairs automatically and we obtained about 9,000 pairs, which we then manually edited. And we came up with roughly 2,000 pairs that are potential German paronyms. So a phenomenon much larger than we originally expected. And some of them are simple entries like Technik, Technologie. And you can imagine that as a German language, you have lots of compounds with those, like Informationstechnik, Informationstechnologie, Atomtechnik, Atomtechnologie. So you can also melt this down, these 2,000 words, to slightly less. And at the moment, we have roughly 350 entries. We are still working on the dictionary, and it will be finished by the end of the year. We will not have those 2,000 entries in there, but roughly 370 in the end.
Thanks, Petra. And let's close with more like a comment, and you will look forward to it, because Michal Mechura says, wow, I think in general that the idea of a dictionary that allows you to compare words in a single consultation instead of having to look at each word individually is a very, very good idea. So that, I think that's that's a comment you can take with you. And
I do. And yes. There are lots of linguists and lexicographers among us. I myself consider myself at most a language user and a dictionary user. And I've been a dictionary user for decades now. And I know exactly what I want to look for in a consultation in a dictionary, in a lookup situation. And I'm always so disappointed usually. So yes, the idea of looking something up with one consultation is I've had that for a very long time, but there's so much more to do. I need much more help. That's why I have this vision, which I presented. So maybe someone else finds this gripping just as me.
I bet. Let's move on to the next summary. As I said, time is a little bit tight, unfortunately, but there will be possibilities or opportunities to talk to you again after the panel session. And I want to introduce the talk of Anna Dziemianko from the University of Poznan on the usefulness of non-examples in online dictionary. Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sascha. Good morning. Can you hear me well? Right. Okay, so let me share my screen with you. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
All right. So, yes, my name is Anna Dziemianko, and I represent Adam Mickiewicz University in Poznań, Poland. And my talk is about the usefulness of non-examples in online dictionaries. Non-examples basically show how a language should not be used. So they show incorrect usage, just like the red example in this slide. They are present in major learners' dictionaries online, but we don't know if they are useful. So I conducted a study to determine if non-examples affect error correction accuracy, error correction time, as well as immediate and delayed retention of correct usage. In my experiment, I had a pre-test, a main test, and immediate and delayed post-tests. All of them were built around 18 English sentences with errors. And in the pre-test and in the post-tests, the participants corrected the errors without access to any dictionaries. And in the main test, they had a purpose-built learner's dictionary at their disposal. I compiled two test versions, or two dictionary versions, if you wish, which differed only in the presence of non-examples and entries. So in one dictionary version, there were regular examples, and in the other one, they were regular examples with non-examples. The non-examples were highlighted in red. And I also controlled the number and distribution of examples and the entries. So the examples useful for error correction were given an entry initial, medial, and final positions. About 200 participants took part in my study, and the results show that non-examples increase error correction accuracy, but they do not speed up task performance. And they do not enhance the ability to correct errors right after exposure, but they do so in the long run. Example distribution influences the immediate retention of correct structures so that entry final examples help to remember them best. So I was surprised to learn that non-examples do not affect error correction time. So it means that they are not noticed immediately, even though they were highlighted in red in my study. And apparently they do not facilitate the search for relevant information in entries, but they proved to be beneficial for the delayed ability to correct errors, which means that they apparently strengthen the memory trace in the long run. And as such, they proved to be a useful standalone feature of learners' dictionaries, which may be helpful in various error correction tasks like proofreading or even writing. So I think that next we should investigate how examples, non-examples should be best presented for learners. And it would also be useful to investigate if their usefulness depends on the types of examples of errors to be corrected. This is something I have not controlled in my study. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. Let me forward one question from Anna Frankenberg from the chat. Very interesting, Anna. I just wonder if the term non-example could be a little misleading. They are, after all, examples of errors.
Yes, thank you very much, Anna, for this question. It was a very big problem for me to use proper terminology in the paper. And I was hesitating for quite a while to choose the proper term, because in the literature on the subject, they are called in different ways. There are called examples of negative evidence or just negative evidence, but there are also publications in particular in lexicon, when where they are called non-examples, and I just adopted this terminology. I'm not sure whether it's the best term I could use, and an error example, which is suggested in the chat, might be a good option too. Yeah, thank you very much for this comment. Mm-hmm.
This also is supported by Annette Kloser-Kückelhaus from the IDS. Example, I guess we should use that. Philip Lowe asks, Anna, what are your preliminary thoughts on how dictionaries can present these differently? These are examples.
They can be presented in different ways. The standard methods of highlighting such examples in dictionaries include asterisks, strikeout font, and just combined, very often combined with italics and sometimes with a bold print. They could also be singled out for attention by different colors, although I haven't come across this yet in other learners' dictionaries. Red is the color used to alert users to the error that those examples represent. So I would say these are like strikeout font and bold print plus some markers like crosses close to the examples, next to the examples. These are those that are typically used in dictionaries. Of course, we should not be limited to these. We may not be limited to these in experiments, because we might come up with some methods of highlighting such error examples which have not been used in dictionaries yet.
Thanks, Anna. Let's take one final question by Yaka Tibe. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Yaka asks, any ideas on how you would include non-examples for different speakers? Some languages may have other typical errors compared to others.
Thank you very much for this question. It's a very relevant one, because the errors which learners make depend to a large extent on their L1s. Okay, so how to include them, and to include those error examples so that they cater for the needs of different speakers. I think that dictionary customization may be a good option here, so that maybe it would be nice to offer users ability to choose L1 when they consult dictionary, and then adjust the error examples to their to the chosen native language. That's an option. So probably it should be combined somehow with a customization of general purpose learners' dictionaries. Of course, this problem is non-existent if we think about dictionaries which are meant for speakers of different languages. But if we think about the global user, then some degree of customization should be implemented, I think.
All right, thanks, Anna. Before we move on, this is a good opportunity for me to tell you that if you haven't done so, and if you find the time, I would advise that you look at the whole talks, which are pre-recorded, because in a study such as this, or the paronym dictionary Petra presented, there's a whole lot more to say than in these short summaries. So take the opportunity to watch the full talks if you haven't done so already. But let's move on to the next speaker. It's Valeria Caruso, Roberta Presta, and Flavia de Simone from the University of Napoli. And their summary will be on accessing lexicographic data by TAP, a formative study. Please, Valeria, I think you will present the summary, right?
Yes, yes, I will. Can you see my slides?
I can.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, okay. So good morning. this research, co-authored with Roberta Presta and Flavia de Simone, aims at developing a user-friendly smartphone dictionary of Italian idioms addressed to foreign learners. We are experimenting different design solutions in order to provide rich lexicographic descriptions in the restricted display space of smartphone screens. And in order to achieve this aim, we are following the human-centered design approach, which is also an ISO standard widely used in the software and hardware industry.
Valeria, sorry.
Yes.
We can see your presenter view. Could you switch the screens? Then the slides will get a little bit bigger.
Ah, okay. Sorry.
Possible. Maybe you need 2 screens for that. I don't know exactly.
Okay, I'll try with the other mode.
That's great. Now it works.
Okay, okay. So in the current stage of our research, we are focusing on the design flows of one prototype before it undergoes additional tests. This prototype offers, in fact, indirect access to additional information about idioms by tapping on meta-lexicographical labels. And the prototype also offers suggestions about which data types are better suited for production and reception tasks. A formative study made with 10 Chinese students allowed us to spot weaknesses and strengths of this prototype. The prototype proved to be, in fact, useful for understanding the idiom meaning and also their morphosyntax, which is also described in the dictionary by a new type of description, which is called the struttura linguistica, or linguistic structure, and is inspired by FrameNet and FrameNet annotations. By referring to this type of item, our users were able to cope with the formal tasks successfully. And more in general, by observing how our user interact with the tool, we were able to rethink the design of the prototype. First of all, we decided different ordering for the items in the dictionary microstructure. We also decided which information type is more suited for reception and production tasks. And we also simplified many meta-lexicographical labels to improve effective searches. The general design improvements of the prototype after the formative study is shown by the screenshots shown in this slide. And if you want to test the prototype on your smartphone, you can scan the QR code on this slide. And that's all. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Valeria. Are there any questions yet? If not, let me start with one question. You didn't show this in your summary because it's a little bit a minor detail, but you have a very, very detailed data set resulting from your fine-grained video analysis. I mean this large Excel table where you transcribed every action the participants took. In a recent study, we had a very similar data set, and I wonder if you have any other ideas which research questions one could answer with such a detailed data set apart from the ones you already answered, because it should be quite general, right?
Yes, yes, that's one of the issues with this type of studies. Namely the fact that we are trying to understand how users interact with the new type of data presentation. And so we are aiming at exploring how people behave when faced with a new tool, with a tool which has an uncommon shape, an uncommon format. So it's quite time-consuming exploring the data we have collected, because participants were small in number, they were 10, but as you say, we collected their actions very, very carefully, and therefore we have a huge amount of data. And we've browsing a lot, and we've checked many possibilities. But we also, what was useful for our research, for our current step of the research, was the fact that we were able to split the group of our users between those who were more skilled and performed better, and those who were less skilled, and comparing, because they have different behaviors. They interact, those who perform better interact much more with the dictionary. They search more in the dictionary, and they also make consultations that are longer with respect to the less skilled users. And so we've been trying to follow this path this time, but you're right, there are many possibilities for this type of study.
Thanks, Valeria. There are two more questions, but we have to move on to the next summary. There is the LexMeet platform, and I hope that these questions will be transferred into this platform. One question is from Jelena Parisowska and one from Jaka Chibey. Maybe we have time later on to cope with these questions. Istok says he will move them there and he will ask the panelists to answer them. But now I want to introduce Bruna da Silva, who is presenting work together with Gilles-Maurice de Schryver and Rove Chishman, and the talk is on revising Dicionário Olímpico, a log files analysis of a Brazilian frame-based online dictionary. Bruna, please.
Okay, I will share my screen. Can you see?
It takes a bit. Yes, we can see it now. And you could, if you could speak up a little, because it's the volume is a little bit low on your end. But
okay, can you? Okay.
Yeah, that should be enough. I can also turn up my speakers.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Bruna da Silva, and I'm going to present a summary of our work that was co-authored with my advisors, Rove, Chishman, and Gilles-Maurice. So this work reports the initial results of an investigation on the use of the Olympic Dictionary, which is a frame-based online dictionary that describes the lexicon of the 40 Summer Olympic sports. The dictionary offers 3 main levels of information describing sports, frames, and lexical units, and it's available at dicionarioolímpico.com.br. The objective of our research is to analyze how the Olympic Dictionary is being used and what this can reveal about the resource. And we also intend to use the results to improve the dictionary itself and the user experience. In order to perform our analysis, we used the log analyzer OStats, and we looked at log files regarding navigation and more specifically page views. So we ended up looking at the 3 months with the highest number of unique visitors, meaning August, September, and November, from 2016 to 2019. And at the time we performed our analysis, we only had access to the top 1,000 pages view. So the results indicated can be divided into 3 categories. The results regarding sport pages revealed that the number of viewed sport decreases over time. On the other hand, the number of page views increases over time. And an outstanding result refers to rhythmic gymnastics that is alone responsible for around 45% of all page views regarding the period of our analysis. When it comes to the frame pages, we identified that the number of view frames remains stable over time. So we have an average of 357 frames that are actually searched by users every month out of a total of 780 frames. So we have around half scenarios that are searched every month. And the number of page views, again, increases over time. For the lexico unit pages, we again have the number of viewed lexico units remain stable over time. And here we have an average of 508 lexico units that are searched per month, out of a total of 3,930 lexico units. So it's a low number. And again, the number of page views increases over time. So from these results, we were able to see that the popularity of the dictionary increases over the years, as we can see from the number of page views that go up for all 3 levels of information. However, most parts of the dictionary are hardly explored by users, as we can see from the results regarding frame and lexico unit pages. That represents a small portion of the total of frames and lexico units that are available on the dictionary. For the next phases of our study, we aim at broadening the scope of our research by analyzing the full lists of pages viewed, and also looking at the entire period the dictionary has been available. So it was launched in 2016, so we have around 5 years of usage data. Besides that, we also want to explore other aspects of the dictionary usage beyond navigation, data regarding navigation. That's all. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Bruna. It's good to see that the Dicionário Olímpico is getting increased popularity over time. Are there any questions for Bruna da Silva? Let me ask one question. It's an easy question, but I don't know how easy the answer will be. Do you have any idea why 45% of all page views are on the pages of rhythmic gymnastics? Are there the most pages? Does it contain the most complicated terminology? Or is your dictionary maybe famous among the rhythmic gymnastics community? Do you have any idea why this is?
We don't have any conclusion yet. The only thing we could come with was that Google suggests rhythmic gymnastics, and probably because they use log files to show the most searched pages of a website. So this could create a circle of research, but we still need to be sure that these results are extended to the entire period. when we look at the entire data, we'll be able to see if rhythmic gymnastics still stands out or what happened. I don't know if Professor Gilles-Maurice wants to add something.
Gilles-Maurice, do you have an idea? And hello.
Good morning, or whatever it is on your side. No, I think it's an interesting case of, you see, we are being ruled by machines these days. It's like Facebook and others, whereby you are fed what you want to read. So here, Google tries to help you. You want to go to this dictionary, or it's an encyclopedia. Well, probably you're interested in this type of sports out of the 40, and they immediately feed you with that input info. So you start wondering, so now it's a philosophical level, are we doing the right thing? Is this really where we want to go? Even in lexicography, where in the end, machines decide for us what we end up consulting, searching, because we don't really search anymore. Because what the logs also show is that people tend to start, when they start at the dictionary itself, at the top, and go through the different frames and lose interest. So if Google tries to shortcut that and sends you immediately to a specific page, it seems that users are happier. We don't know that yet. So, but is it really what they want and what they need? We don't know yet. So actually, in a way, the results are disappointing, because it means that most of the dictionary is never seen. Most people hardly see most of the work that the lexicographers have put in compiling all that stuff. So this is very worrying. So this modern technology, it allows us now to, for the first time, see what users do. But so far, I find the outcome very disappointing in terms of seeing how people actually interact with these tools.
Thanks, Gilles-Maurice. I think you are not alone with this, let's call it phenomenon, with this dark side of the dictionary. You could say the side no one ever sees. Let's discuss this further after our panel session. And move on to the last summary. Thank you, Bruna da Silva. Thank you, Gilles-Maurice. And the last summary will be presented by Allahverdi Verdizade. It's on entry layout, etymology, and information overload, a comparison between English and Swedish dictionary. Allahverdi, please.
Hello, I hope you can hear me well and you can see my slide.
Oh, it's
can you see it? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. In my essay-like paper, I made a comparison between the entry layout and its relationship to etymology on the English and the Swedish Wiktionary, and how it would hypothetically influence different groups of Wiktionary users. Hypothetically means that it's most retrospection, because I didn't do actual user research. And rather than basing user groups on the traditional consulting situations, such as reception, production, or translation, I decided to make an analysis based on two large groups of users. In the paper, I use more, but you can boil them down to two large groups of users: those who could be interested in etymological information and those who are interested in anything else, that is primarily the semantic information. And the main difference between the English and Swedish Wiktionary when it comes to the layout, except for the size, the English Wiktionary is of course much bigger and larger and has more contributors. The main difference besides that is that the English Wiktionary is organized structurally much more like Wikipedia, from which it got its structure, with a lot of sections, and these sections contain different types of information and are separated from one another. And the lemmata are split between different etymology sections if a word is homonymous. You can see the schematic division between the English Wiktionary and Swedish Wiktionary and printed dictionaries. On the other hand, on the Swedish Wiktionary, homonymous words are treated as polysemous, and all definitions are kept together. So the etymology is disregarded in the hierarchical structure of the entry. Etymological information, to the extent that it is given, is structurally under the level of the individual definition. And what you see on your screen is a fake entry, but it is constructed by me and represents pretty well the entry layouts on the English and on the Swedish dictionaries. You can see that to the left, the definitions are split not only between parts of speech in English, but also between two etymologies. Whereas to the right on the Swedish dictionary, they're only split along these parts of speech. And in the Swedish, and I conclude that although users at the English dictionary may have to navigate through potentially more complicated entry structure with a lot of sections and senses being split between them, this still allows for compilation of large etymology sections. Whereas if the same amount of etymological information would be inserted among the definitions of the Swedish dictionary, that entry would effectively become impossible to navigate, both for people who are interested in the etymology and for people who are not interested in that. So this is what you see now is an example of a real entry, a homonymous entry. The word goes back, the senses of this word go back to different etymologies. And if you would insert all that information between the senses, then it would be very, very hard to navigate the entry. So therefore, I conclude that for the time being, as long as the Swedish dictionary still has comparatively little etymological information, especially in homonymous words, it serves people who are not interested in etymology better because the definitions are kept together and easier to navigate between. That's my main conclusion. Thanks for listening.
Thanks a lot, Allahverdi. And there's already a question from Jelena Kallas. At the moment, we face the situation where academic lexicography and user-generated dictionaries develop in parallel and without much cooperation. How do you envisage the future? Will all knowledge encapsulated in dictionaries will end up in wikis in the end?
The short answer is yes, I think. But yes, you point out a very striking problem that there is a huge gap between how Wiktionary, when I say Wiktionary, I mean effectively English Wiktionary, understands itself as the dictionary, the project, and then there is anything else. And on the one side and on the other side, that is largely ignored in the professional lexicography. And I hope that this gap will be closed. Regarding the second part of your question, yes, I think all knowledge being encapsulated in dictionaries is very probable, and it also has a democratic function that it will be more accessible to everyone. I think it would be a truly good development.
Thanks, Allahverdi. And let's try for the last few minutes, and I don't know how the policy is for extending into the break or have a fluid transition into the break. Let's break up the sequential pattern of this session, and maybe someone has overarching questions or comments. I guess Gilles-Maurice statement on dark side of dictionaries and the influence large search engines have on finding contents is already an overarching comment. I did some analyses on dictionary, on the German dictionary and on the Ovid portal of the IDS, and I get quite similar numbers of entries that are never visited within each year. And we also had this in the Swahili English dictionary, Gilles-Maurice, right? So, but is this really a problem? Or is it just a pity that no one sees large portions of the dictionary? I don't know.
I'm giving the audience an opportunity to say something, but I don't know. I see it as a problem because if this is, you know, it goes back to my initial idea. If we could know in advance what people will want to look up, we just work on that and put that in the dictionary. So my initial idea, as you know, was to just take a corpus and just work on the top frequent material and only treat that in a dictionary. Then it turned out that, well, sometimes users do need the very rare as well. But if it's hardly ever looked at, and if as much time for the very rare needs to be spent on producing the material as for the very frequent, then that's a very bad investment of our time and resources and whatnot. So, but it's the current trend. We all watch the same Netflix movies. We all go to the same resource when we take a break. Is that good or bad? It depends on your point of view. It perhaps also links back to that idea: are we commercial publishers or working in academia? If it's the latter, well, we just have to treat the language democratically, equally across the full lexicon. But if we want to make money, if we want to sell our data to the big players like Amazon and Facebook and Google, well, perhaps we should indeed only focus on what people end up wanting to see or already being forced to look at. It's a vicious little circle. So it depends who your superior is, perhaps.
Yeah. We could also link back to a concept Valeria introduced in her talk, because she talked about formative and summative evaluations. Formative evaluations being evaluations while developing the dictionary in the development process. And one opportunity could be to just create the dictionary the way you want it to be, and then during a summative evaluation, which is an evaluation when the dictionary is already there, focus like quality improvement measures on articles that are viewed quite often. But then again, you get into this vicious circle of maybe the entries that are never looked at they are just not that good. Well, nobody can know this. But if we focus on the things people look up, then we strengthen this process even more, because these will get better, and the things that nobody looks at don't ever get better, right? Istok says, Sascha, we need to stop slowly. The discussion can go on, but say that this is now a discussion during the break. So I'm announcing this is now a discussion during a break. You can also take a break. Yeah, Valeria, any ideas on this formative versus summative thing?
Formative things are things that you should use to test new ideas, things that are particularly uncommon, and you want to have a feedback on that before going to the summative evaluations. Absolutely. And regarding the fact of focusing only on specific information given by the dictionary, I don't know, it might be also useful, but generally speaking, formative studies are very small scale studies, and they should give glimpses of broader aspects, I think. Probably the type and the specific information consulted by people is accessible only with big numbers. I don't think it's something you can achieve in the short time of a formative evaluation, because the formative evaluation helps designers and dictionary compilers to rethink the dictionary, to somehow shape the dictionary in a better way before, for example, the dictionary is tested comparatively with another type of dictionary, another prototype. this is basically what the human-centered design approach suggests to do.
Yeah, thanks. There are a few more comments and questions in the chat. I hope they will be transferred to the LexMeet platform too. I think so. And I would say let's take 10-minute break, and we will meet again 11:15 for the panel session on pedagogical lexicography. I don't like this word.
Yeah, learn lexicography would be better.
All right. And well, thanks for your participation. Let's continue the discussion on the LexMeet platform, because these are some interesting questions. Also, other questions are present in the chat. And I hope to see you all again soon. Yeah. Maybe at the same location Gilles-Maurice is currently in. Quite nice.
Yeah.
Thank you all. See you.